Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I'm going to chat with you guys a little bit about this whole idea that you can't just grow your way into being stronger. And it's just patently a false idea. You'll see these conversations when people bring up bodybuilders and bodybuilders who are weak. And keep in mind, I'm not really a big bodybuilding fan, not my thing. I think people are aware of that. But by that same token, I acknowledge that hypertrophy work and getting bigger will almost always raise your strength ceiling. It just takes a little bit of practice on some big lifts to get there. But, by that same token, that doesn't mean that we always have to lift super heavy to be able to display maximum strength. And an example I love to use, not just myself but other people, I know plenty of people who hit 50-pound PRs on the platform. It happens. Meaning what they do in the gym, on a lift, they might only do 500 pounds at any point in their training and then hit 550 pounds on the platform for a meet legal lift. Okay, so context there. But it's the same thing we saw when I did that charity event. I didn't touch anything over 570 for a very, very long time. I mean, over 6 months. And I'm not saying I hadn't previously done over 600-pound deadlifts, but I hadn't going into that event. And I walked in, went up, pulled 585, and then pulled 625. Okay? Right there in front of judges and audience, everything, with their plates. I just walked in and did it. I didn't peak for that. I had been doing a lot of back and posterior chain work. I've been doing some different deadlift variations. But the most weight I had hit at any point close to that was 570. I went up 55 pounds. Okay, how did I do it? Because I got bigger. I got bigger. And when you see this thing where people don't understand, they're thinking, well, how come this guy who is really jacked isn't strong when he tries to lift? But then you realize the guy's not that big. They might have, you'll see this aesthetic looking guy, right? This really lean guy with a lot of chest and shoulders, okay? Who might have a good bench. Maybe you'll say, well, he's got a good bench, but then they're like, but he can't deadlift, and he trains his back and legs, but he doesn't have a back or legs. You look at them and the guy has no hamstrings. Well, of course he only deadlifts, 410 pounds. He has no hamstrings. He's got a little bit of lat from doing some lat pull downs or pull ups or whatever he does. But the guy will have no traps, no hamstrings, and I mean non-existent. Like you can tell he's not trained on. What happens? Of course he can't deadlift. See a guy who can't power squat, but he has no glutes, he has no adductors. Of course he can't squat. You can't just do leg extensions. The same thing with some of these other lifts. They have no core. They've not built the musculature of their trunk, so maybe they might not be that strong. But if they do, then they will be. Okay, case in point, how many of these bodybuilding types do have enormous benches when they test it and practice it a little bit? I've seen plenty of them. You'll even occasionally see the guy who's at this really light body weight, who's nothing but chest, who will have a quite an impressive bench. They're rare, but we see a few of them out there. Like I saw one of them that everyone pointed out, but they're like, he's only 160 pounds and he benches 400. But then you see him shirtless and the guy had, pecs that would fill a bra. Well, he's not small. He's just small everywhere else. He has enough pec to power through it, because I think that's the thing that people need to remember too. Just because we have a weak link, like you might look at that and go, but man, if he had more triceps and back, he would bench even more. Yes. But because one of the main primary movers was enormous on a small guy, what do you think happened? He's got a big chest. And if you do lots and lots and lots of benching and build your pecs up with lots of volume benching with progressive overload, you're probably going to have a pretty good max. Okay? You take a guy who does tons and tons of sets with 225 on the bench, right? Does tons of sets with it. But, let's say he's up to where he can do like 4 sets of 15 with 225. Paused and all that, and has big chest. You do not think he's going to have a big bench? Of course he is. He might need to practice the setup. He might need to practice the pause getting tight. He might need a couple weeks to practice, but he's got a big bench. And you see it with a lot of these pro bodybuilders. The same thing, people will see them, well, they're not that strong, because you see them training with lightweights and they've got the drug stack and the genetics to get away with getting big. But what happens when they do load up a bench? How many pro bodybuilders have you looked out there, these IFBB pros, who are big and then they put 500 pounds on the bar and bench it? When it's put to the test, they can do it. Okay, they can do it. And they'll have big deadlifts if they've built everything. If they have a glutes, hamstrings, back, they don't have a weak core because they've trained everything. A lot of them have monstrous deadlifts. Sometimes 700-800 pounds. Without training for a max deadlift, they oftentimes have big numbers. Why? Because they're jacked. So that is my point to people. You can always hypertrophy your way to a bigger lift, but the thing is, you have to make sure that stabilizers and stuff are built. I mean, obviously, you know, we come over to that point there, but if you have a really weak core, your deadlift might suck. But what if you've actually built everything? What if you have the trunk musculature to stabilize it, and the lats, and the abs, and the traps to stabilize it well? And then you have big glutes and hamstrings where you're going to probably have a big deadlift without even training it much. So on and so forth, and that's what people have to remember. Even if you have weak links, if you still take primary movers and you get them bigger and bigger and bigger, a lift will still go up. You'll still get stronger at it. Okay? You get your pecs and your triceps bigger, your bench press will go up. You get your adductors, your glutes, and and your quads bigger, your squat will go up. Okay? Not saying it's always going to give you the neural drive to use that muscle the most efficiently. You may not have all the stabilizers to hold it in place, and you may have to work on those things, but those are all hypertrophy also too, right? You're just not as jacked as you think you are, right? That's all it is. The person just isn't as jacked as they think they are. And don't mistake body fat for not being jacked. That's a big problem we run into on these topics too. They assume because someone's not lean that they're not carrying bodybuilder amounts of muscle. It's not always the case. Promise you there's plenty of these super heavyweight strength athletes who look like bodybuilders underneath the fluff. They look like pro bodybuilders under there. They have to with the weight they're moving. Again, you can always build muscle to improve your maxes. It's always an option. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.